Jordan, the floor is yours, and please accept our gratitude for your time and your expertise joining us here tonight.
Well, thanks for having me, everybody. How are you all doing tonight? Hope you're all well.
Best part of my
Um,
week.
well, again, my name is Jordan. I am a zookeeper. So in short, I work with animals. I use my social media platforms to make educational videos about wildlife, and I try to get people to enjoy wildlife with me. Before I start talking, I can let me show you guys a video so you can get a little bit more familiar with what I do. Let me see here. Make sure I have it up. Okay. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to use this one. And I need to move this out of the way. What's up, it's your boy, Jonathan. Let me know, can you guys hear the audio?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
It's a little quiet, but we can hear it.
I've been in the zoo field since I was 11 years old. I've always been passionate about animals and teaching everybody about animals. Wildlife conservation is my passion. Join me on my mission to save wildlife and have a little fun along the way. All this stuff is amazing. I love the outdoors. Okay, so that was just like a little promo video that's been being shared on Facebook. So to start off, why did I get into this world? What makes me care about animals so much? Ever since I was a kid, I've always just been obsessed with animals. I grew up with anger management issues, and I used to get bullied a lot because kids would make fun of me because they saw how easy it was to make me angry, and they thought it was weird that I liked animals. Because it's a little different from where I grew up. You know, it's not many people were like voicing how much they loved animals, right? So with that growing up, I used to get into fights. I used to get expelled from school, suspended, all kinds of stuff. And my mom noticed that I was always happiest when I was around animals. So she contacted one of my local zoos when I was 11 years old to see if they would allow me to become a volunteer, which is not something that is usually something that's done for an 11-year-old. They actually said yes, as long as I had a chaperone with me. So I had someone who was a worker employee at the zoo have me shadow them I was in the family farm area at the zoo. So that's the area where there's the goats and the petting zoo, all that stuff. Um, and, and they all thought it was kind of like odd for this 11-year-old to be so passionate about being around animals and talking to people. And I've always just found my happy place with the animals. So that's kind of how I've pretty much been introduced into that zoo world at such a young age. Ever since I was 11, I haven't really left the zoo. Um, so what I do with social media is I explain to people the good that zoos do and what zoos really are, because a lot of people have this misconception about what zoos do. And you know, because back in what the the 1920s and so a lot of zoos got their start for entertainment purposes, and they were capturing animals out in the wild and putting them in the zoos. There was a whole different skewed perception of what should be done with animals. But zoos now, they are accredited facilities, they're nonprofit. All the money that comes in goes back to the care of the animals, like for myself, and to conservation projects all over the world and throughout the states. So, what we're doing, like with all these animals that are already in zoos, we have specific breeding programs that track the genetic viability of the different animals in throughout the zoo populations, and they link up to make sure there's a viable population, there's a nice population for breeding and to keep the animals alive. And a lot of the work that we do, we do some projects even in our own state, like for here in Washington, at my one of the zoos I used to work at, we had this project, we have this project with Oregon spotted frogs, and the other one is Western pond turtles. So what's going on with Western pond turtles is that they are being eaten by invasive species such as bullfrogs, and their ponds are being destroyed pretty much due to, you know, habitat pollution and all these different things. So what we do with this program is we collect eggs, we raise them up, we hatch them, we raise them up, and we let them grow to a size that's too big for the bullfrogs to eat, and then we release them back into the wild. So that's one of the projects that I used to work on. That's a local project that multiple zoos in my location come together and work on. So that's just one example of one of the conservation projects that we're doing for a local species. Um, and for those that don't know, invasive species means an animal that's come into the area that's, you know, either introduced or got there somehow, and they're taking over the natural habitat and destroying it, and they shouldn't be there, that whole thing. I think you guys get that gist of that. And so what else do I do? Um, as a zookeeper, what I do is I take care of the animals. I make sure they're well fed. A lot of people think that zookeepers just cuddle animals all day. That we're hugging things, and we're not doing that. We're not doing any of that. Sometimes we have the occasional animal hug, but that's not really what happens. That's not what happens. I would say about 85% of my day as a zookeeper is cleaning. So we're picking up poop, we're cleaning out ponds, we're hosing stuff, we're scraping things. It's all cleaning. And that's a big part of animal husbandry, to make sure the animals' lives are better. And a huge part of my degree is wildlife conservation. So we're trying to figure out how to conserve these animals' lives and better their situations and make sure they're happy and thriving. We have a big emphasis on animal behavior. So we are the first line of defense to check if these animals are sick or hurt or anything like that. We see it first. Here is a quick clip I wanted to show you guys, actually. Let me share my screen again. Okay, you guys can see that. Okay. Turn my screen up again. Here we go. As a kid, Lone Park Zoo was my second home. I was here so much, it was like having animals next door. I mean, what kid wouldn't want a hippo in their backyard? I grew up with severe anger management issues, but when I was at the zoo, my anger always seemed to fade away. I realized this was my happy place. My mom enrolled me in the volunteer program when I was 11, making history as one of the youngest volunteers ever. I found an extended family at the zoo. I bonded with animals, staff, and other volunteers, which is why I never left. When I was younger, I never realized I was the only child of color in my program. I just knew that I loved animals. Today, as a Black zookeeper, I feel as though it provides me the unique opportunity to inspire children of color who come to the zoo. It inspires me, it really inspires me to see these kids coming to the zoo, because their eyes light up and shine, and they get really excited to think that they can do something what I'm doing. Imagine what it feels like for a kid to come to the zoo and see someone working with the animals who looks like them. I'm so grateful to be able to do this here at Willow Park Zoo. My favorite place to be and my second home. Okay, so that was a hippo. For those who are probably guessing the face that I was rubbing, that was a hippo's chin. I used to work with hippos. I've worked with quite a few different animals, but I showed you guys that video because I have an emphasis in my videos now about diversity in animal care. It's not, growing up, I didn't see anyone that looked like me doing this job, and I find, the reason why I felt like I was bullied as a kid, because all those kids, it wasn't normal for someone like us that looks like me to be working with animals. So that's why with my videos now, I'm trying to make it very important that they can see what I look like, so they can understand that it's okay if you're a kid, that looks like me, to be, it's okay to do this job. All those kids that used to bully me, like, bully me. And I say bully, but it was more of like they would say something about me, and then I kind of lose my mind, and we'd end up in a fight. But that's a whole different conversation. I'm not a horrible person, but just saying. So the point of that is all those kids that used to make fun of me for liking animals come to me now and be like, "Hey, Jordan, man, I've always liked animals. I just didn't know I could do something like that. I just didn't know that could be a job. I never knew." And all these kids, all these people who are adults now show my videos to their kids, and that makes me happy. I feel like that means I'm making a difference. And all these kids that see me when I'm working with the hippos or whoever, the kids walk up and they're like, "Wow!" Like that's why I do what I do. And now, in time of COVID, it's a little bit tougher, um, because I do outreach for the zoo I'm at now. I do a lot of outreach, and I go to schools, but we can't go to schools right now because COVID, and everybody's at home, and we're doing stuff like this right now. And so that's what I've had to resort to. Um, and luckily, I have the platform to be able to reach more people and more kids, and they still need to be educated, and they really do appreciate it. Um, I can talk a lot more, but I don't know how much time I have. Where should I stop? Because I'll just go on forever.
We typically do about 15 to 20 minutes, but we can always take a break for questions about your videos or pieces that people have seen so far. I'm particularly curious how COVID has changed things.
Okay, I can talk. I can keep talking about that. So with COVID, we so currently my zoo is open. I'm at a smaller zoo called Cougar Mountain Zoo in Issaquah, Washington. And it's really weird. We're open, but those first few months of us being open, we were closed from March until June. That whole time in there, so it's weird. My position right now, I'm not a zookeeper. Well, on the side, we're a smaller zoo, so I do a lot. Okay. So I'm, besides being a zookeeper working with animals, I'm also in charge of our marketing department, which is just me. And I run the social media for the zoo. I also do educational outreach and do presentations around the zoo. And I work with the ambassador animals, which are the ones that go to schools and events. So I do a lot. I'm a man of many hats. So there, it was weird. I had to find a way to stay connected with people while they were at home in quarantine. So I started this program called Zoo to You, which I wasn't the first person to start Zoo to You. There's a lot of zoos that found that clever line of Zoo to You. I mean, obviously, we're bringing Zoo to You. So I filmed, edited, set up all these videos for giving lectures to kids and people for free, just throwing it up on our website and everything for people to watch. And that's how we had to stay connected with people. Like there was even for Mother's Day, I had to, because people hadn't been outside of their homes. I set up this little drive-through Mother's Day event, for animal adoption, symbolic animal adoptions. So people could come up, drive through, come up and get a rose. I personally was the one handing out all the roses, and I was selling all the little symbolic animal adoptions as gifts, and it was a really fun event. We had one of our macaws, one of our birds out there hanging with us, and that was a very interesting process. But then after that, when we opened back up in June, so it was weird having to police people instead of being able to do presentations. I had to stand out there as a docent, like what volunteers normally do, and hang out and roam the zoo and just watch. And I basically had to be social distancing police and mask police. And luckily I feel like I'm not doing it as much now. Like people are getting the hint, but because we're outside, people just assume, in Washington, we're very strict about the masks, right? Just like Oregon. So people have to wear their masks. And some people, luckily, we didn't have any horrible issues with masks. And on top of that, we that whole time we were closed, where's the revenue for the zoo? Where's the revenue for the animals? And that was a tough part. Luckily, my director applied for the PPP loan, which we got some of that for the employees, and none of us had to be let go, which was nice, except we had to go down in hours. But we have to take care of the animals. Someone has to be there for the animals, right? I hosted a couple fundraisers, online virtual fundraisers. And then, because we're as a nonprofit, we are not federally funded, we're not government funded. We don't get state money, we don't get any of that. We had to apply for that kind of stuff like everybody else. And we did get some help once we applied for this little grant from Washington state government, and we definitely were floating by. We were okay. We were okay. So it's been interesting. I can say we're doing better than a lot of other smaller other facilities, but it was tough. And now that we've been open, we just had our Reindeer Festival. We have reindeer at the zoo, at our zoo, and that was during the holiday season during December. I was dressed up as an elf, the world's tallest elf. For those that can't tell, I'm pretty tall. I 6'5", so there's that.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a tall guy, and it was a fun event. We had Santa there, but obviously we can't have people right next to Santa, so we had him in the sleigh. You would sit in front of the sleigh, take pictures. I was the photography elf. I do a lot. I do a lot at the zoo.
Jordan, I think we have
yes.
time for two more questions.
Sorry.
Let's see.
Lisa.
There you go.
Lisa.
Hi, I just wanted to sort of come back to the COVID issue a little bit in terms of being concerned about the animals.
Mm-hmm.
I read recently that some primates in the zoo COVID had been detected in some primates in the zoo. I think it was gorillas.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how that figures into what you're doing at the zoo to protect the animals in addition to the people.
So that was at San Diego Zoo Safari Park. I actually have friends there. The good thing about me with my social media, I've made a lot of friends in the zookeeping world. We're pretty close knit community. But I texted my friends over there, and that the gorillas, it came from an asymptomatic keeper, symptomatic keeper who was tested and then found out she had COVID. And they checked with all the gorillas, and it turns out they got it. But even though we are taking all the necessary precautions, as zookeepers, we're wearing masks around all day around the animals. With primates, they can catch the flu from us. They can catch all kinds of stuff from us. So it's different when you're working with primates versus working with birds or other animals. Birds too, but it's very different. There's levels to each of these animals. For instance, with our cats, they can catch COVID. I don't know if you guys heard back in March and April, there was the tiger in the Bronx Zoo. And so with us, our cats have open air exhibits and people are nearby. So we have these stanchions to keep people 6 feet away from the barrier and make sure that they're wearing the masks around. So that's one of the policing areas that I had to stand by. So all these necessary precautions are still being taken, but somehow the animals can still get it. And San Diego Zoo is currently closed right now. So is the Safari. I think Safari Park's closed too. But yeah, and they still ended up catching it. But it doesn't affect all the animals the same exact way. Like the tigers, with them, it would be more of just hard to breathe. They're not sniffling and things like that, but it's just harder for them to breathe. And so we're doing the best we can to stay safe around them.
Great. Okay, we have one more question for Jordan.
This is Holly. It's not a question, but it's a statement. With your wearing many hats and doing many things, you sound like a Rotarian.
I can say that I am not a Rotarian.
Yet.
Make a good one.
Yet.
Sure.
Okay.
If there's
Jordan, yes, go ahead.
Can I ask one quick question?
Sure.
Speaking of tigers, just, and this is probably a larger topic than you can get into, but
Is it about Tiger King?
Inadvertently, how do we as consumers know the difference between proper conservation and conservationists, right? Because that's
Yeah.
the branding that they use.
Okay. Well, if they look anything like Joe Exotic, it's probably not a legit place. Just kidding. It's a joke, but not really. No. I don't judge by looks, but it's, a good way to look into a zoo is if you check out, you can't always judge by who they are accredited by, but that's a good way to start to see if they are an accredited facility by either AZA or ZAA. Just it's really difficult. A way to look is if there's any kind of cub petting going on, it's probably not the best place potentially. I just don't think people should go in with tigers and different things like that. It just isn't really a safe practice, and some of these people are just trying to profit off of the animals. And if they just have a tiger in their backyard, that's clearly not right, right? Like, you shouldn't own these exotic wild animals. I would just try to do some research and look to see what they're actually got to have their hands in. Are they actually contributing to conservation projects outside of the country, things like that, or locally. They're not just saying it. You need to see proof.
Yeah, those are great tips, Jordan. I want to thank you, Jordan, for joining us from our northern neighbor. And I want to also just thank you for the work that you do. I think it's important work to introduce nature of all varieties, particularly the animal world and wildlife, to the general public, but particularly to kids. And thank you for the outreach that you do. I think that's really important work as well. So again, thank you for joining us.
Sure. Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate you all. Have a great night.
You too.
Jordan.
You
Thanks
too.
for coming.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank
guys.
you, Jordan.